Our panelists today are myself, Midwest Underwriting Council, Elizabeth Berg, who is, I'm Candy. Elizabeth, who is in Indiana. She has all the Northeast, or pretty much everything East except for Florida. Cheryl Coward.
Oh, there's Kevin.
Whoa, up in your grill. So Cheryl Coward is senior. She's doing everything national. Mickey Gerdes is out of Texas. And then Kevin is out of Florida. Okay. So today's goal is, yesterday we talked a lot about Ron. Today's about what are we doing if you can't use Ron, or in other certain things, what are you seeing? The chat function's open. I'm going to be monitoring that. So if you guys, wherever you're at, see something that you're like, this is a great idea, we're doing this, or this isn't working, you shouldn't do this, feel free to throw it in there and I'll bring it up to the group. But we kind of have a short PowerPoint presentation of just random topics too that we wanted to launch or kind of everybody talk about, and we'll just kind of go from there. But if you have anything specific, like I said, put it in the chat. So
we really want this to be a discussion, a round table. So yeah, feel free to ask questions or throw out what your office is doing, because it could be helpful to somebody else. And we're all here to help each other at this point. Okay, we're gonna start the.
Elizabeth, do you want?
Yep. All right. Hold on. Do you see it?
Yes.
All right. I had a problem yesterday. So Candy kind of already talked about this. This is what we're just going to basically going over today. Our goals, what's going on? We're going to do basically 5 things. Acknowledge we're in a different world, discuss options beyond remote online notary, review resources available to make sure your offices and customers stay as safe as possible, discuss how we lead each other through this change that is sometimes daily. Yay. And then I'll just take a deep breath together and get back to it. So, as Candy mentioned, this is our first topic. We're going to get to Ron. Let's just think about the stress that we've been going through here and think about it being temporary. I'll tell you about my stressor from last week. Was really, actually it's 2 weeks ago, was the closed courthouse situation. Just trying to figure out where we're at on a daily basis in Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, which are my primary states, and recognizing and seeing that it was changing day by day. And it's different, right? Like some counties we can search better, some that we can't. That was my big stressor, and it wigged me out. I also have a 5-month-old at home, and I have a closed daycare. So sometimes when you guys call me, there might be someone in the background saying hi, and that's just a change that I've been dealing with. Anyone else?
You also have a spouse working from home.
Oh, the man in the basement? Oh, him. Yeah. John is working here too. So everyone's in the house. Oh.
And he's not chained up in the basement because I've seen him moving around.
Yes. No one will get to see him in this. I do have the door shut, so. Oh. Candy, you want to talk about how you've been relieving stress?
By playing ping pong.
Yeah.
So my husband works for a school district here in Kansas, and they close for the rest of the year. But he still has to oversee everything just from the courtesy of our basement. But our basement has a ping pong table. So in times of stress or need to get a break, we go play a couple rounds of ping pong. I'm getting much better. We're to the point where I'm actually winning some. So that's good. But it's just getting through okay, he's in one part of the house, the dogs are barking, I'm in another part, what's Zoom, what are we doing to make sure that we can still be able to talk to the people we need to, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is true for everybody, that you're using a lot more of the Zoom or the FaceTime, both professionally and personally. 2 weeks ago, I still had the piece of paper with the Scotch tape over my camera on my laptop, and I have a feeling that that is never going back on. That this is the new normal to a degree. But I also am like FaceTiming my nieces and stuff, something that I wouldn't normally do, and that's been a lot of fun. So I think you're making some changes. Some of those you might go back to. Other things are, like I said, it's the new normal, and there's lots of advantages to them.
Cheryl, are you still wearing your tinfoil hat though?
No, I'm not still wearing my tinfoil hat.
Okay, good. Good.
That's
good.
Brent. Brent wears the tinfoil hat.
One thing somebody in the chat just mentioned, which we completely agree with, is a good way to de-stress is virtual happy hours. So if you're not doing them with your company, it's something to really consider. David started one with us a couple weeks ago, and I'm surprised at how fun it was, if that's the wrong thing to say. But my husband saw it, and he did it with his employees, and he said he's like, I've learned more about them in this hour than I did working together every day, because everybody's in this different environment. You're dealing with it, so you almost look forward to seeing those coworkers, or maybe at times you're like, oh, smelly Karen. Now you're like, what's up, smelly Karen? I miss smelling you. So virtual happy hours has been one of those. And that's a good point, Wendy. Thanks for bringing that up, that you're not doing those with your company. And it doesn't have to be, so like Jake works for a school district, can't be during the work hours, because he can't say, hey, you guys need to be drinking. So he did it at 5 o'clock. It was totally up to them. They didn't have to drink, but it just was a way to talk to each other. And I think that went over really well. So it's just something, if you're not doing it, to consider it.
Yeah, Knox, yeah, good call. Virtual happy hour starting at 10 a.m. Why not?
You can't drink all day. You can't drink all day if you don't start.
I've heard people say that we're now under airport rules because we're at home, which means you can have a cocktail at 9 in the morning. It's okay.
Nobody's judging. There are no judges.
We're judge-free zone at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Candy, like you're saying, you do get to meet people and see a different side, because you get to see what the environment they're in. It's funny to see, the backgrounds of everybody. And the other cool thing, guys, is you can also have fun with Zoom and choose virtual backgrounds. So, I can have a meme behind me. Or
did you see the boss that turned herself into a potato and she couldn't change herself back?
Yes. And there are some unintended consequences. Like there was a priest in Italy that was doing a FaceTime service and accidentally turned on the graphics. So he at one point had mouse ears and glitter was coming out of his mouth while he was doing the homily, and just things like that. So be aware of your technology and what's going on.
But the good news is, when you do have Zoom, so maybe we shouldn't start drinking at 10 a.m. I don't know. Maybe we should. But you can use this technology still to reach out to your realtor and lender clients just to say hi, because that's what we're missing right now. Like, I feel like I'm really missing that, is that I'm a 95% extrovert or something crazy. I do miss seeing everyone and just having that interaction. Like David and I, we just had like a 15-minute Zoom meeting that we set up real quick today. And it was nice just to see someone's face. Yeah, we weren't in the same room, but we did that. So that's really been affecting me. Like, how do I still reach people? How do I still talk to everyone? So another technology that I just started using today, I've known about this for years. I started doing BombBomb videos today to say hi to my agents, just giving a shout out, letting them know about today's conference, just saying, hi, hope you're okay. It's when it's crazy like this, sometimes it's nice just to get a reach out like that. It's kind of like the random card that you get. My mom always sends me one on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know why, but it always makes me happy just to, hey, how are you doing? Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let's have corned beef. Okay, great. So I think it's good that we acknowledge we are in a different world. Do we want to start talking about Ron now and different options?
Options other than Ron, or are we going to talk about? Okay, yeah. I think that's, yeah.
Well, one of the things though, did we talk about closed courthouses? Because I know we had 2 the other day in Missouri because of, sorry, I was looking at the chat. Because of somebody within the courthouse itself testing positive, they closed it down completely. We had one recorder in Missouri that said, to be fair to everyone, I'm not even going to allow e-recording because the people who can't record otherwise can't record. So if something like that has happened in your county, please make sure to let us know, because we went ahead and reached out to the Missouri Land Title Association, because recorders shouldn't be able to pick if they are going to e-record or not. If they have the ability, they should be able to do it. So if you're seeing something like that, just please let us know so that we can reach out to the Land Title Association or Alta if needed to kind of get some of that. But have you guys seen that anywhere else where they're just saying we're not even going to e-record?
Well, what I've seen is counties that are going just to e-recording are getting further and further behind, whether it's because they don't have as many people manning the e-recording process or what it is, but you've got, you know, a county that maybe a couple of days behind is getting further and further behind. So the e-recordings are in the queue, but you know, you put an e-recording in the queue on Monday, it might not get recorded for another 6 business days. And we're starting to see some of that. And how do we work with that?
Absolutely. And I think that's something that we're going to have to, you know, figure out as we're going. And yeah, that's one of my stressors. Candy, we have a couple counties where, yeah, they're not even pushing the button on e-record. They're just like, I'm out. We'll see you. So, you know, I am the incoming president for ILTA, Indiana Land Title Association. That's one of the things that we're working on. You know, how do we talk with these folks? And, you know, we're going to talk in this session later on about staying safe as much as possible, but how do we get our land record folks to recognize they are an essential service and they need to stay open? Not only do we need you, like we need you open. So yeah, I mean, it's been difficult, and you know, trying to figure out.
Well, and balancing that with understanding that they're dealing with their fear and their concerns for their staff and what's going on, but at the same time going, dude, you gotta stay open, you gotta record.
Yeah.
Nikki or Kevin, have either of you guys, because you guys have primarily e-recording counties, have you had any issues in Florida or Texas?
We've had absolutely no problems in Florida.
None so far in Texas. Everybody's still either up and running or accepting e-recordings. As Cheryl mentioned, the only thing we're seeing is that the gap period is getting wider because there's not enough people to index the stuff that's being recorded. But the best source of information on any of this is the Texas Land Title Association. I know that they are constantly putting out bulletins every day on updated courthouse closures or processes or procedures. In fact, they put one out this morning about relaxing, or not relaxing, but emergency guidance on Texas home equity loan closing, because that's a unique animal to the state of Texas. So we're telling everybody down here at least to check with TLTA. They're going to be the most current, up-to-date source of info. And if there's a change to our agents' national process or procedures, we'll put out a bulletin to address that.
Yeah, one of the things that the clerks down here have done is simply lock their front doors. There's no more walk-ins. You can call and make an appointment for a very, very important specific reason. But other than that, the people, and the gap on our e-recording seems to be shrinking, because it looks like they've taken other staff who would be helping walk-in customers, and now they have them indexing and doing other things. So it sort of has helped our e-recording process. But that may be a suggestion, because I'm sure they're terrorized. They don't want strangers walking in. You never know who's going to come in. But just lock your front door. If somebody calls and needs an appointment, you can make a judgment on that, whether or not to grant that appointment, but you don't need to have those people walking into your office to stay safe. And even the Department of Homeland Security guidance lists county clerk staff who are involved with recording, searching real estate records, they are considered essential employees. So that's also one of those. They didn't know how essential they were before, we can point it out to them. So.
Yeah, we've seen that too, where they've said, where many of the recorders have closed their, or locked the door and said, we're still recording, but you need to call for an appointment, and we're going to ask you some questions or check your temperature or do something like that before you come in the office to record.
Mm-hmm. And Ruth has pointed out something great. A lot of our recorders, and this is true in Indiana too, this is for Shelby County, working on technology to be able to e-record from home. So our, same thing for us, as a company, a lot of our folks that don't work from home are now working from home. Everyone is. How do you do that? How do you, kind of back to John's point, how do you make sure that everything's secure? They're all working on a new normal too, and trying to figure things out. And I think the message too is the more that we can help them and provide them with ideas, because everyone's in the same situation. How do we stay safe? How do we keep our people safe? And Kevin, you're right. Like, I love the lock your door. Like, just don't let them come in and do an appointment for something essential, but they're still open in that situation. So.
And late yesterday, our governor issued an executive order basically telling people that they have to stay home as of Friday at midnight. And all hell was breaking loose. So I started sending emails to a bunch of our agents, a bunch of prospects, and the phone started ringing. And I was on the phone until probably 11:30 last night. And a lot of it, you talk about correct information, the incorrect information. Some people just like to spread gloom and doom, and then it all turns very personal. And so it was sort of a nice chance to catch up with a lot of people, even though I was actually reading the Ron statute at 11:30 at night, trying to find out if it's the only acceptable identification when you're out of the country is a US passport, which sort of would make sense, but there's nothing in the statute about that, so.
The rules according to Kevin in Florida. Oh, okay. We're kind of going toward that topic. So the options beyond Ron. So yesterday we had our conversation that was specifically directed towards remote online notarization. Let's just spitball here. Ideas we've been hearing from around the country about, okay, you can't do Ron. We're going to have to see people. What do we do in that situation? What can we do to protect our folks? Ideas to keep up social distancing as much as possible.
So I was on the October research. They had a webinar yesterday, and the speakers there came up with a list of options. And I just want to read you the names because I thought they were very creative. The drop and run, the drive up through closing, aka the drive-by, the shuttle, the Teddy Roosevelt, speak loudly and carry a long stick. So literally, like, I'll pass you it via a hockey stick. The picnic method, where you meet at a park outside and sit there with your little blanket and you're signing docs, or like the thin package. And it was just kind of funny that they took a fun spin on it, because everybody's starting to do the drive-through where you come up and you have your car and you're going to roll down the window enough to pass over the identification. You do the documents real quick, and then you're never coming into the agent's office. But some of the others, I've seen some agents doing that outside. Let's do it at a picnic table, even if you're at one picnic table and I'm at the other, keeping that distance, but trying to be creative with it, but making sure everybody's safe.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of the drive-by, drive-throughs. I've seen the, passing the ID basically like through I would think of like a carry-out window someplace or something, that type of thing where somebody's standing there and you're explaining it. I haven't heard the picnic one. That's good.
Mm-hmm. One option to think about too, if your state allows for in-person electronic notarization, the iPen, so where we're in the same room, if you have an iPad, there is a way, and that's what you're using, and that's how people are putting their electronic signature. there are different films that you can put on the front of it and then a case on the back of it. So you can actually wipe that bad boy down with, you know, our friend the bleach wipe afterwards.
Where'd you get those? Where'd you get those? Where'd you get those wipes? Who'd you pay for those wipes?
I'm
market
plugging my source.
Those are black market. I know
Yep.
it.
Let me tell you about our toilet paper run yesterday. Anyway, but that's a way to still do a notarization in person and still protect yourself and get it clean.
Well, the other thing I've seen is people are basically have purchased, you know, boxes and boxes and boxes of basically disposable pens. Keep the pen, throw it away, but everybody gets a brand new pen. If they do come in and sign, everybody gets a brand new pen.
Yeah.
So there's two things from the chat, one of which is how are people handling notary journals? And the other one, we're trying to not take the ID itself, so we're not handling it, but have them take a picture and email it to us. What if that picture is not legible?
Have them retake it.
Yeah,
I think so too. It has to be legible.
it has to be legible.
Do you think it's okay that they're not looking at the actual identification at the time of the notarization?
Yeah, I mean, my gut response is yes. I mean, it's one thing if they hold up their ID and you take a picture of it, but if they're taking a picture of it and sending it to you, how do you know that it's them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing, like if you're on the other side, so like the idea of passing through, even if you, like, most of us have an iPhone, right? Most of us have a smartphone. If you have that plexiglass and they hold it up right then, why can't we take the photo of it? And then that is the actual ID. You can make sure you have a good photo that you can put to your file.
So the agent said they're taking the picture in front of them. So it's pretty much, it sounds like I'm on one side of the table, you're on the other. I'm going to literally, I mean, you can see what I look like. I'm going to text you the picture of it right now. I'm just not physically handing it to you to have you take the photo.
Mm-hmm.
I think that works. I mean, the other thing is if they're in the room, have the individual slide it over, you take the picture, they slide it back, you never touch it.
Sure. And then what about notary journals? Some states require that the person sign your journal. So I gave a little bit of leeway in that scenario, and I said, let's just note, and I put like note COVID-19, and you do everything else, but you just mentioned that you didn't have them sign it for them touching your journal, because your journal obviously a little bit harder to disinfect than a document. One agent did suggest they do notary sign-in sheets versus having them fill out the journal. So you could say see sign-in sheet, and then you could have a binder of just those signatures. But has anybody seen anything else that would be different?
The surgical gloves, to provide surgical gloves to the actual buyer or seller to sign the journal with the surgical gloves. I've seen that. I've also seen that for the escrow officers closing the transactions, where they're actually wearing surgical gloves so that they can handle the ID and take those pictures themselves. But the journal makes sense too.
Yeah, I saw Ruth recommended gloves and a mask. The problem is you can't get masks anywhere. So masks are going towards hospitals and stuff, but surgical gloves make sense. Although the first thing that pops into my mind, it's not surgical gloves. You say gloves and I think of, the the yellow dishwashing gloves.
Mm-hmm. Those would work if they're new, Cheryl.
I know.
Oh.
As long as they're not coughing into it right before they sign.
Right.
Right.
I had, just a side note, I had somebody who was talking to somebody whose daughter is a flight attendant, and right as all of this was first starting and really getting to the point where we were concerned about it, she said, there's somebody on her flight that was wearing gloves and a mask. She's like, okay. But then he went into the bathroom on the airplane and came out and was still wearing the gloves. And she's like, that's just,
Yeah.
Better off washing your hands, dude. Wash your hands.
Yeah. So
Well, and Deborah just mentioned that what they're doing for a closing tomorrow, it's from the car outside. They're going to have the borrowers put the IDs in a clear baggie, and then they'll take the picture, give the baggie back. Ruth also said, and I've seen this a lot where people are making masks just because hospitals and places need them. And so she said she's made a bunch and have them in her
Oh,
office.
nice.
So maybe it's the cloth masks that you're seeing a lot
Right,
on
right,
social
right.
media, not so much the N95, 95 ones.
yeah.
95.
And what's great about those cloth masks that are being made, you can wash them on hot water and they're going to be good to go again.
Yep.
So they are reusable, and it will, you know, nothing's ever perfect, but it's going to help a lot for sure.
Mhm.
One thing also, and this kind of makes sense, and that I have seen is telling your buyers or whoever's coming in, only the people that are actually going to be signing the documents should be allowed in.
Right.
Like, yes, school is closed, daycares are closed. Please, they are cute. Leave your germ children outside. Don't bring them into our office. Another thing that I've seen people doing is, so we're worried about being in the presence of people. Have them have schedules. So we're always worried about NPI. Don't run your closings at the same time. Like if you're used to multiple offices, if you can, have people have a half hour in between so that you have them broken out, and then they could stay in your lobby area too.
Well,
So
and
doing it from afar.
my husband's doctor's office, because he cut his finger, had to get stitches. They have you wait in your car until it's time for your appointment, and they'll text you and have you come in. So you're not even in the lobby at all. You could stay in the car, say, hey, when we're ready for you to come in, we'll let you know. That way they're only in there that amount of time that they need to be.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a change because we're used to, you know, boom, 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 stacking up the closings and going from one to another. But we, you know, you gotta, everybody will be fine. Everybody's gonna understand if you're like, okay, I have a closing at 2, I can't do another closing till 3 or whatever the time frame is that you need, so that you have time to get people in and out, to wipe down your closing table with the black market Clorox wipes or whatever you whatever you have.
And I think the biggest thing too is don't feel bad for, oh, I'm not going to shake your hand. Because like my husband said, a guy was like, oh, you're not going to shake my hand. Like he got defensive. And it's, you know, this is for the safety of not only you and my employees, but my family and anybody else we're coming into contact with. So it's not something that you need to apologize or feel bad for, that, hey, I'm going to clean this up after you. No, I don't believe you have this, but to be safe for not only me, but everyone. These are
The reality of this is that, I mean, what you say is, okay, I don't know that you don't know if you have it or not. So you could be symptom free and still have the virus. So it's just a way of being careful.
Mm-hmm. And it's a new normal. I was talking with an agent from Indiana this week who, before this happened, everyone was like, you guys are so slow. Why are you going so slow through all the documents? And now, because they're like, only come in for this, we're going to get them done, bam, bam, bam. They're like, well, you treated us so fast. And it's like, well, yeah, you're not going to get the usual, welcome to my office. Would you like your Starbucks or whatever? Like, we're just going to get it done and get you out. So that's where there has to be, I think a good idea too, is to reach out to your realtors and your lenders. Like if they still are required to come to your office, if they're being remote, like these are our new processes. These are our new steps to think about, and how our closings are going to be different just for a little bit here.
Well, and it's nice that if you need to explain those documents, you can do that prior to. Just remember, if you are going through NPI, like somebody had said in the chat, you're not going to be using Zoom because like it's not encrypted. But a lot of people who are doing those curbside closings are explaining everything ahead of time. So really, you're just doing the act of execution.
Right.
Right.
And I have seen where some of the attorney states, it's being recommended that the parties give their attorney, or states where attorneys are heavily involved, which is not necessarily the Midwest, but for other states where you're using an attorney for the your closing, to give your attorney unlimited power of attorney so that he or she is the only one in that closing. Not everybody has to go. And that works again in those states where attorneys are common as far as the real estate closing is concerned.
Yeah. And that's another option, you know, that everyone needs to explore. And I know that we're going to be talking about, for example, the limited power of attorney and the new rules that were issued yesterday by Fannie and Freddie. You know, I come from a claims background, and I remember what we were doing, you know, 10, 15 years ago with a limited power of attorney is a little wild on occasion. But they have loosened that up, you know, to start using those for this situation. So again, you know, you could use that attorney to have them signed. We have less people actually with each other and in the presence of each other. So,
well, and somebody else mentioned, if you are having people come in and execute, are you calling them the day before to ask those COVID-19 symptom questions to make sure that they're not feeling any of that? Also, somebody else said with construction disbursements, they only mail checks now or will send them electronically. Nobody's allowed to come in, pick up the check. You know, just how can you limit that exposure? But then also, are you vetting those people before they're coming in?
Yeah, we had several closings 2 weeks ago in Naples, condominiums, strict rules by the association that there has to be a face-to-face meeting with the buyer in order for the association to approve the buyer. People couldn't get down here. They were up north. They didn't really want to travel. And then somebody realized, why don't we just FaceTime? And everybody, you know, all of a sudden they're talking on FaceTime. The board's approving them, sending out the approval letter, and all of a sudden the closings are moving very, very quickly. There's some with 1 or 2 were done by Ron, 1 or 2 were done by as mailaways, but it was still, it got the ball rolling.
Well, and that's something that you can use on FaceTime because you're not talking about anything that needs to be encrypted or you know.
But it was just one of those blockages,
right,
getting to the closing table that nobody seemed to be able to overcome.
Right.
Realtors hadn't thought about it. None of the parties had thought about it. It was the agent who was sitting there thinking, why are these 90-year-olds buying condominiums in Florida? They have high expectations for their life expectancy. And so the one thing he was certain that everybody knew was that everybody knew how to FaceTime with their grandchildren.
Right.
So he said,
say that
is the key right there. I bet these people are FaceTiming with the grandkids and everything. It was very simple for everybody to get on there.
mm-hmm.
Well, and like Cindy said in the chat function, they have 3 empty banks. And so they thought about doing it through the teller system. So they're talking through the intercoms. They're able to send everything through that chute to and from. I think that's a great idea if you have the ability to use an old bank. I don't know how many people have that option, but you know, just another creative way of using your resources out there that are available.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cindy, do they get the you know, when you used to go through the drive-thru and you'd get like either the lollipop or for the kids or the dog treats for the dogs?
Well, they get a pin. Everybody gets a pin. It's like Oprah.
That's true.
We used to get chiclets. Remember the little gum, the little white gum you could put on your teeth? Oh.
So would you, if the realtor isn't part of your signing, or would you allow them to be there? I think it really should just be the person signing, right?
Right.
No
My recommendation would be no.
I agree.
That's
where you can be out sitting outside or, you know, whatever, but I don't think if the people are, especially if they're coming into the office, I think you need to limit it to the people that you need there to sign the documents.
Yeah.
As long as the realtor is getting paid, they don't really care.
I was gonna say, they're still gonna get their commission whether they're in the office or not.
And one of the things that was stressing out a lot of the people I was talking to last night were realtors who were told not to come to the closing. The check would be delivered to them, or it could be wired into an account, and the realtors still showed up, started hugging people, wanted to shake hands, and the realization is how difficult it is to change people's ingrained behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, even though you're not supposed to, your first instinct when you meet somebody is to stick your hand out. And then you have to pull it back. But again, like Candy said, it's not anything personal, but it's your gut instinct to, or as most people know, I'm a hugger. So if I know you at all, I'm going to give you a hug, and to not do that. I mean, it helps that I've only seen basically one person for the last 2 weeks, and sometimes I don't want to hug them. So.
Right? Oh goodness. Yeah. No, we have a problem in Indiana because we actually have a regulation that says our realtors have to be at the closing.
Really?
Yeah. So I know the local Realtors Association has been working with their regulator to say, no, really, right now we shouldn't be. But that's another time that we can use FaceTime and still have the realtor providing their services and their knowledge to help, their buyer do this without them actually being in the office.
So if you do a drive-through, do you have like the realtor in one car and then the executor in the other one, and like they're there, or are you seeing a lot of drive-throughs in Indiana?
We have a lot of drive-throughs, but I mean, basically the realtor's just there on the telephone with someone.
Okay.
On FaceTime. So they could still FaceTime their client and answer questions. So you have, you're driving in your car and you just put it on your dash, you can see them and still talk with your realtor about questions you have, or signings like this wasn't fixed, like why wasn't the soffit put back, or whatever the issue is. They're still there, they're still communicating, they're still
just not in person.
They're not in person. Yeah. A time that FaceTime is useful and does help with the transaction. So it's kind of like what Kevin was talking about. Like they don't need to sign anything. It's just a conversation that needs to happen. So.
And also, because it's much warmer down here, the agents down here have started running tents, so people can drive under the tent. The closer's out there with her own little table, her documents, boxes of new pens, and she's just running the show, and one car after another. So that may be a suggestion you could make for people who, as it gets a little bit warmer up there, nobody's going to want to sit in the car and bake at 95 degrees in July. So
yeah, Kevin, we haven't seen the sun for 6 months here in Indiana, so we're a little bit excited right now. But you're right, everyone has a soccer tent they're not using right now. Kind of like the local Chick-fil-A. Pop that bad boy up and get ready.
What about costs for transactions for Ron? I know we talked about Ron yesterday, but are agents passing that cost on to their people, the clients, the consumers there, or what's going on that front?
in Florida, it's allowed to be a direct pass through to the consumer because it's optional. And if the consumer decides to use Ron, that's considered their choice, and the cost is just passed through.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, for right now, that could also be a business decision too. Because yeah, I totally agree, Kevin. And we have to sort through that with our regulator from a title perspective in Indiana about what exactly can be passed through. Because our statute does say $25, but I know some of them cost more than that. So we need to work on that issue.
Kevin, do you know an average of how much it costs?
I don't.
I was just curious. Like we obviously we haven't seen it as much, Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska.
It was, and as I say that, how it's passed through to the consumer, it was a major blow up among the regulators in Tallahassee and the title industry when they put out a bulletin saying that that type of charge for any notarization had to be absorbed by the agent. So it became a big political brouhaha, which you may have to go through at some point. But in the end, when it was recognized that it was really an optional decision, that it was something that was allowed to be passed through. Plus, if I remember, they kept using the term $175.
Okay.
We have limitations in our statute as to what the notary can charge. There's
Sure.
no regulation as to what the platforms can charge, though.
Okay. One other question that Lisa sent in, if someone says they have COVID-19 symptoms, can we ban them from the closing, or do we ban them from the closing? I mean, I think that's a personal decision, but I would say absolutely, because you're then putting yourself at risk at that point. If they have symptoms and they become positive, you need to then be in quarantine for 14 days and anybody you contacted. So if they end up getting it, you're then telling every other person that you closed, hey,
Right.
I was in contact. So I think at that point, the closing has to be delayed, or you see if you can use the RON function in some fashion in your state.
Yeah, and if you do come in contact, I know this happened in Indiana, there's the potential, right? So if you do come in contact with someone that is positive in your business, the State Board of Health might be contacting you to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, you know, just to track this and see what's going on. And then you're dealing with that issue also. So yeah, if someone's got
If somebody, yeah, and if somebody's tested positive, then find out if somebody, you know, do they have a power of attorney? Or are they willing to give somebody a power of attorney, and see if there's a way to work that out? But otherwise, yeah, I don't think you can let them in. I don't think you can do the closing.
Mm-mm. All right. So that kind of takes us also to some resources that are going to be available that you could look at and think about to help you. I put just two on here. I have been looking at the CDC's website. They are changing that at almost every other day as they're finding out more information, and you know, as they're getting more studies and data and all of that. I thought that was a great place. Your State Department of Health is also going to have it more localized and what's going on in your state. Here in Indiana, Dr. Christina Box and our Governor Eric Holcomb have been giving very good updates to tell us what's going on daily, if not every other day, and concerns and things that they're seeing. Anything else out there?
I've been loving Alta's.
Yeah, Alta's
resources.
website's really,
Between the counties, we're getting COVID updates every day with here's the relevant, because there's so much information out there. It's like, how do you know what's correct? You know, you can't be relying on Facebook for your news, or you shouldn't be. So it's kind of nice to have it all succinct. This is how it affects us. I thought Alta has done a great job, and you're able to use it no matter what state you're in.
so Candy, I'm going to back up. Wait a minute. I shouldn't be getting my news information off of social media?
I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, and we can do a whole nother hour on that, Cheryl. So.
Maybe 3 hours. Oh.
Any other besides Alta that you guys are seeing or using or relying upon?
Well, here in Texas, the TLTA website, it's putting out a bulletin every day on updated closure information and other pertinent information that we need to know down here, at least in Texas. And that's where we're pointing everybody to. It's the most up-to-date current information out there.
And are you seeing that most of your agents are actually members of the Land Title Association?
I would say most of them are. You know, the hard part is you don't know if those are going to the managers
Sure.
only, or if the escrow officers and assistants are actually getting those bulletins too. So we've been trying to pass those on as much as we can to anybody that we think might use that information. But those managers probably need a reminder that, hey, if you're getting those TLTA bulletins, pass them downstream so that your escrow folks know what's happening as well.
Mm-hmm. And you know, that kind of leads to our next topic, and we can go back and forth, obviously, but I think it's great. I mean, Mickey, like if it's only the owner and manager that gets that bulletin, that's an opportunity every day that someone could send to their entire company. Hey, this is what's going on. I'm just checking in with you. What do you need? What can we do? Because for me, I work remotely. I don't work at HQ. I'm here in Indiana, where HQ is in Columbia, Missouri. I'm used to that situation where I'm not talking with Cheryl or David or Candy or in their presence every single day. But in this situation, even if you're in an office and you're still doing closings in your office, I think that check-in every day is even more vitally important than usual.
Well, and I like the point you have here about sharing your mistakes. So you tried something, it didn't work. So share that and say, okay, this didn't work. So let's figure out another way to do it, or a better way to do it, or how can we make this more efficient, more better for the customer, you know, anything like that. So, I mean, I'm a big advocate of that anyway, but certainly in today's environment, I think that's vital.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just knowing your employees and how they need social interaction, like as Elizabeth said, she's a huge extrovert. I am not. I'm okay being at home, but I've talked to Elizabeth more than I ever have before because she needs that interaction. So if you know, if you know those employees that aren't doing as well at home, how can you, make sure that they're still included? So if you have that daily briefing of like, here's just 10 minutes, let's get together on Zoom and talk about what's going on for the day or where we're at or what we've seen, I think that goes a long way for morale.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So my mistake that I had yesterday, I didn't realize it until I watched the Zoom video. So when I did my practicing, because, we're dealing with new stuff. I've never done a Zoom webinar. I've done Zoom meetings with Happy Hour, but I wasn't doing a presentation. I didn't realize so I did my practice run through and the E was backwards. So then I erased it like right before it and put it up. Well, then come to find out, Candy was like, you're mirrored in what you see, but what we see isn't mirrored. So I gave a whole presentation yesterday with that backward E behind me. That was my mistake. I will.
That's the part of giving grace. We all need to give grace at this point.
Exactly. And an interesting point. So I listened to a webinar. It was actually hosted by Second City. They're doing another one tomorrow. So Second City is improv, right? And it was really interesting to me because so a lot of their folks eventually end up on SNL, Saturday Night Live, and there's a lot of great improv. Tina Fey was there, all of that. But one thing that they worked on and talked about was allowing others to lead. This could be a situation where, and we might have a day when, as an owner or manager, it might be a really bad day, and maybe you just step back for a half a day, or maybe someone steps forward with a great idea, and where normally that would be on your plate, let them go ahead and run with it and see what you can do. That's kind of what I was talking about yesterday with Ron, finding that person that's really great with the technology and giving them a little more line than maybe you would on a normal day. Just something to think about. I like to thank my friend that told me she totally judged me yesterday for the backward E. Thank you, Leslie. I'm feeling better now. Oh, goodness.
So we're getting close on time. We have about 10 minutes. So if there's anything that you in the audience are thinking, well, can you talk about that or bring it up, or what do you think about this? Go ahead and throw that in there now. One thing I'm thinking is that I've really enjoyed this roundtable. It's nice because you're getting a bunch of different perspectives from across the nation. Something that I wanted to do is Missouri's planning on we should be having an emergency rule come out somewhat soon. I think it would be nice to be able to do a individualized presentation for maybe just Missouri. Mm-hmm. So if you guys out in the audience think that it would be helpful to have your state, because I know Elizabeth's talked about it with Indiana, let me know individually if you think that's a good idea. Because last thing we want is I'm getting webinar emails every single day for multiple times a day. So we don't want to inundate you with stuff, but if it's something that you feel like it would be helpful to learn or be able to talk to in more of a setting like this, I'm more than happy to do that for, my states, and I know the others are as well. We just don't want to do it. Okay, somebody just said yes. So
Yes. Done.
I'll stop talking. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, that's it. That's all I had for that, because everybody's already emailing me. So, okay.
Way to go. Floodgates. Yes, Candy, more.
There you go.
More candy dish.
The candy dish. Stay tuned next week.
So, hey, everyone that's on here, I just want to give a plug. We just sent out an email for another webinar this afternoon, only this one's with Brent Shear and myself at 2:30 Central on the Paycheck Protection Program. This is the SBA loan program that's being put forth by the government, and the first day to file for that is tomorrow. So, and there's a limited pool of money for that. So it's designed for small businesses, similar like to title agents. And so if you guys are interested in learning more about this or how to apply, we're going to be walking through that process today. And sorry for having back-to-back webinars on this, but it just popped out. We just got all the forms for it. And if you've got questions, we hopefully will have some answers for you. I know that went out about 30 to 40 minutes ago. So check your inboxes if you're interested in learning more about the Paycheck Protection Program and how it could benefit your business.
And David, will that be recorded if we're
It
not?
will be. It will be. And also, we're going to be posting these videos to Agents U. If you go to agentsu.com, we'll have videos on there for information.
So somebody just asked about how's licensing going to work if your title school's canceled. So for Missouri, ours was canceled, and they're not at this point doing an extension for CE hours. But with Missouri, we have a lot of education online. So we are able to get those hours out there for people who need it. So,
well, and the association MLTA is reaching out to the Department of Insurance to see if there's going to be a grace period or something to, since we're in this situation and we had to cancel title school. We're also doing more webinars. We're doing a couple webinars a month versus what we've done in the past. So that'll be out there also.
I'm sorry, Deborah, I don't know what state.
Yeah, I don't know what state she's in. Sorry.
I know in Texas, at least, TLTA and TDI put out some bulletins about easing or relaxing those licensing requirements or requirements. So I think that's happening and is pretty common across the country as far as that goes. But I would definitely check with TLTA or TDI on those bulletins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So here's a question to the panel. Has anybody seen any kind of backlog with their RON availability? Because I know that at least in Texas, I had an agent reach out and was looking for some alternatives to RON because the first available date that their chosen provider could do their closing was April 15th. And so as everybody starts scrambling to get signed up with a provider and get onboarded with some sort of RON or moving towards RON closings, there is going to be a backlog. And so I don't know if y'all are seeing that as well, but we're definitely starting to see some of that down here in Texas.
I've heard of a 2 to 3 week out, 2 to 3 weeks out at least. So that is one thing. If you're looking into it, you either need to get in the queue now. And frankly, even if you're not going to do it, you don't have one on the horizon, it's still good to get this all set up. Like I've had a couple agents in Missouri coming to me and saying, well, how do I e-record? And it's something that I just thought everybody recorded. So, it's still good to get in that queue because sure, this happened and nobody knew it was going to happen, but eventually it's going to become more and more norm. So it's just nice to have it all set up.
And in Florida, I think I may have mentioned it earlier, our Secretary of State is approving 100 new RON notaries a day.
Wow.
A minimum of 100 new RON notaries a day.
Find a friend in Florida. Oh, goodness.
It doesn't help us in Texas because the RON actually has to be located in Texas.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, so I think with that, I think kind of our end message to everyone is also going to be just a general, you've got this. Like, we're going to figure this out. If you're having a bad day, and all of us have had bad days, I cried last week. I'm not crying this week. Don't know what the difference was. You know, we are here to listen. I know Kevin talked about how he was on the phone until 11:30 last night. You know, do reach out to us if you're having a bad day, if you're having a question, if there's something that's really just stressing you out. And then, you know, now that it's starting to get warm out, I can't wait for me here in the Midwest in Indiana, being able to get outside, even if it's just for 5 minutes in the middle of the day, get a little vitamin D in me. So, yeah.
I think we're good.
Very good.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Feel free to email any of us directly with any questions you have. Go listen to our 2:30 class with David and Brent. Otherwise, have a great Thursday.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.